Hi everyone, it's Heidi from Flutterbyheidi.co.uk. I'm Heidi Smith, I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator based in the United Kingdom, and today I am bringing you another project with a beautiful two-tone Flora suite, and I'm using the Stamp and Die bundle along with the coordinating DSP to make this fun diorama card. Now these have been around a long time. This is just a remake of it, but as you can see here, using the beautiful stitched rectangles to create an aperture, and then the lovely lacy die, which is part of this bundle here. So you've got beautiful flowers and leaves, and the dies that go and cut out those flowers and leaves, and then you have this amazing die here, which is a big panel die. And as you can see, I've still got some little bits stuck in from when I created my sample. So I'm just going to poke those out very briefly because we don't want those stopping my next lot of die cutting. And it really is a beautiful sort of feature panel. And I've got a couple of cards using this already because I think it's so lovely. One of the tips I shared before as well was to create yourself a little template showing the layering up, because these are two-step stamping. So you've got a detailed image and you've got a background image. Now originally I went for background image then detail. I've now changed my mind. So actually stamp the detail first in the darker colour and then add your background. I found that actually was much easier by the end of it. And you just use these centre kind of stamens and dots as the way to line up those images as well. The other thing I've done is actually numbered them. So you can see here, hopefully, I've written the numbers, the horrible ring light glare. I've written the numbers onto the acetate sheet. Hopefully you can see that there. Okay, so that I easily know which ones they are in reference to this one here, because a couple of these look kind of similar if they're not stamped. I just thought it was easier. So that's what I'm using. I say stitched rectangles, an excellent staple to have in your stash. I'm using number 4 and number 5, counting from the inside out of the larger ones rather than these smaller ones here. But these are great for your sentiment. So if you're not comfortable stamping straight onto your cardstock, or if it doesn't go quite right, you could always use one of these to add a panel across afterwards for that statement, sentiment even. Or because these sentiments are from the Charming Sentiments, you could use your silhouette sentiment silhouette dies that coordinate to die cut it as well and give it a bit of image. So you'll see here that this is these are the various dies that go with these. So that's another option for you. Okay, the DSP that goes with this is absolutely beautiful. Lovely kind of, I think it's gouache or oils, but real sort of texture on it, even though it's just printed. On the one side you've got floral images, on the reverse you've got that kind of painted texture. Some of them have got painted texture on both sides. So this one's more floral, that one. So this is my least favourite with the soft suede, but you can see the colours in here. We've got Fresh Freesia, we've got Orchid Oasis in there, and you can see all sorts of shades. So lots of options. There's soft sea foam and pool party. You can see in there a bit of balmy blue, some Daffodil Delight, splashes of yellow going through to Calypso Coral as well. A bit of Smoky Slate for neutrals. This one's almost going down towards Starry Sky, but Night of Navy with that as well. Lovely Calypso Coral there. So these are all the papers. So you've got 12 sheets of 12 designs of 6x6 paper, and you get 4 sheets each of that in your pack of paper. Okay, so to start off with then, we want to do some stamping and die cutting. So I've just got myself some scraps of basic white. You're going to want your stamping pierce mat as well, because these are photopolymer stamps and that will give you the best image. I'm going to use some different paper. I'm going to use this paper here, but it's got the kind of petal pink coral, Calypso Coral in there. So I thought I'd actually stick with this sort of shades of blue and sort of purplish blue for the card, but then add those Calypso Coral leaves as well. So I'm going to use the same colourways I've used on my original one. So I'm using petal pink and Calypso Coral. for the detail. I'm using some soft sea foam as well, like so. Okay, so I'm going to go through, let's do my soft sea foam first. So I'm stamping and die cutting these leaves. As she says, I'm going to do it on that slightly bigger piece there, give myself a bit more space. So I want to stamp and die cut that once. And I'm also going to, at the same time, do some stamping on my inner piece of Whisper White. So this is 7.5 by 14 centimetres, and this is the inner panel. So this is this one here. And I'm also going to stamp onto my front layer, which is 8 by 13.5. So this is the very front panel. So I'm just going to stamp my leaves onto that. And I'm going to grab just a scrap of paper as well, because when you stamp off the side, you don't want to make a mess of your nice, clean Stampin' Pierce mat. Well, okay, it's not, perhaps not desperately nice and clean, but there we go. So all I'm going to do here is I just came down and just kind of added a bit of a trail of leaves here. I just did a bit of a border coming in and off the edge there. And then I'm actually going to come a little bit higher up as well, so when my flowers, you've got a bit of background there as well. On the inside, I'll do my stamping first. So I'm going to use one of my detailed images for the inside there, and let's go for the largest one. So here I'm using my Calypso Coral to add my image on the inside. I'm then going to use my background image in Petal Pink, and hopefully you can see I'm hovering over the top there and I'm lining up those stamens in the middle, and then once that's done, there we have our beautiful image. And now I can come in with those two little almost rose type leaves and just stamp that around the edge. So that gives us a nice panel to write our sentiment on as well. So pop that to one side. As I said, the front image, you'll see here, I've stamped my leaves in green, and I'm actually going to come into that top corner and stamp my multi-flower images. So again, I'm going to use the same colourway. I'm going to use my Calypso Coral, and I'm going to do a spray in the corner first. And again, with this, just hover over and you should be able to line up those dots. So I'm going to rotate it so that they do line up, and I'm just hovering with the centres of those to create our floral image. And with the others, what I've actually done, which I will show you, is I've actually put a mark to the top. So what I'm saying is here, hopefully you see, can you see, hopefully I've got a dot to mark where the top is, and that just helps you line them up as well. I just haven't done it on this image yet. So it just means I need to just make sure they line up by hovering. Yeah. So that's starting to take shape on the front there. So we can pop that to one side. And the other piece, this is the piece we're going to use for our die cutting with our rectangle. I'm actually just going to come and use just some of the other images on the inside there, but I'm going to use them just almost to make us like a Versamark kind of image. So I'm going to use my Orchid Oasis, she says, grabbing it, and I'm going to use that stamped off. So I'm going to use these two stamps here just to create a border, and this little image as well. So make sure those are nice and clean. I'll just quick chamois those. Okay, so we're going to come round with my Orchid Oasis. And with this, it doesn't obviously matter what we do. I'm going to do that in the top and bottom corners. A lot of this will be die cut away, but that's easier to do sometimes than to stamp now and then do our die cutting. So I'm just going to create a bit of a border. And with the image, you don't want to stamp it off in the same, you don't want it to be in the same strength. So now what we want to do is just line that up and stamp it off first. You can see it just gives them a very subtle image. We can just create our flowers there. So that's our panel for die cutting. Pop the ink out of the way. So this panel here, so I said you needed your 2 sizes of stitched rectangles. The one you're going to use on this panel is the smaller one, and you're just going to line that up with an even border at the top. This means that whether you're working in UK or US cardstock, it works exactly the same way. That piece of tape has obviously lost its stickiness. So line that up. You can measure it if you want, but you should be able to just, keep it fairly parallel to the side. There we go. And then just stick it. And I always stick the tape on the inside because I'm not going to be using that section. So that piece goes to one side, and that piece is 8.5 by 14 centimetres. Now we've done our sort of panel stamping, I'm going to stamp some of my images to die cut. So I've done my leaf, having whittled on about it. Now I'm going to do my flowers, and the only other colour I'm using here is Sweet Sorbet. So I'm using this one for the kind of more rounded image that we've got. So by that I mean this one here. So my rounded one, see, is my number 5. So I'm going to want that die, and this is the one for that. And I've even written the little numbers on the back as well there. So the more rounded one then I have got, which is this one here. So I'm going to do this one actually in the detail is actually in Sweet Sorbet. So again, so detail in Sweet Sorbet, and then I'm using my Calypso Coral stamped off to go over that. So again, just using those stamens in the middle there, hopefully you could see. I've lined that up, and that's my flower there. I've used my dot at the top as well to make it easy for me to line up. So that one is ready for die cutting. Grab my leaf one as well, and that, making sure it doesn't overlap with the dies. Line up the stems at the bottom and the leaf at the top and pop that in place. And now let's use our larger image. In fact, I'll use the largest one I think for this one. So again, I'm not going to use Sweet Sorbet anymore, so let's pop that out of the way. I'm going to use my Calypso Coral for my detail. And then again my Petal Pink to go over the top. And this one's got those little sort of spiky stamens, so just line that up. Looks like I need to give that a bit of a clean. Looks like I've got a nice bit of dog hair on that. Who isn't in here with me at the moment. My puppy is in the kitchen having some rest. Okay, so those are ready for you to die cut, or for me to die cut. Then the final one that we want is our kind of rosy type one. And for this one, again, to get a variation in shade, what I'm doing here is I'm using Calypso Coral, but stamping off first. Okay, so I've stamped that off. I'm going to do the same with my Petal Pink, even though it's quite light anyway. Line that up. You see the dot is giving me an idea of where to start. I can line up those centre bits, and you'll see there you've got some lovely lighter shades as well. So pop those away, add my die in. Again, my dot helps me line it up to the top, and that can be die cut. So there we've got our images. Pop my dies away. Again, check the numbers. I draw around them again so that I know where they go, and I can always see that I have put them away. Although I did have one instance where I dropped a die in my room and it hasn't been found. My bow has not appeared, so I am bowless on one of my stamp sets. Now the lovely thing about this this card is that this centre panel doesn't need to have any adhesive on the back of it because it's all hidden by the aperture. So there are our flowers. So now let's clear the decks. So my panel for a die cut, the die cut, I'm using some balmy blue here, and that's 8 by 13. And I'm just popping that through the die cutting machine in that complete panel. So when you take it out of your die cutting machine, you should be able to see that that has cut all the way through, and you can see nice clear defined lines there. That's going to make it easy. Give it a good tap. Use your die brush as well to release that. You've got the attachment that goes on the end of your take your pick tool, but if you just run it over, I've got my original one here, you'll see all those pieces just dropping out. Whoever does the vacuuming will just love you if you do what I've done, which is shaking it. It's me that does the vacuuming, so it's I'm the one that has to tidy up. But if you do it that way, you can scoop those up more easily. And then you've got this lovely panel, which if you take one of the larger pieces and use that to just pull it up and out, there you go, the last little bit up there. Why is there always one bit that remains stubborn? There we go. Okay, so now we've got our die cut panel, and we've also got our panel which has been die cut with the smaller rectangle. So there's our panel there. I even put it through the post-it note. Okay, so that's going to create our panel, as you can see. You can choose how much or how little of it you want seeing. And what you're going to do is add some adhesive tape around the outer edge to hold that in place. So up to you what you use. You can use your Stampin' seal and just run that down the outer edge. What you want to do is keep it away from the very middle bit. Oh, look at that. Because you don't want it sticking to your background. So I'm just going around the very outer edge of that, and then I'm going to pop that panel in place. Oh. Like so. And there you go. How pretty does that look? Okay, pop that to one side. We're going to want our larger die now, and we're going to want to create our base. Okay, so a card base then is 28.7 by 14.5. If you're in the US cardstock, you'll need to use your 12 by 12. If I can work out a version that uses your 11-inch cardstock, I will do. The other thing we want to do is cut our DSP for the back as well. So using your trimmer then, cardstock 28.7 by 14.5. DSP for the inside is 8.5 by 14. So I'm just going to cut, and I'm going to choose the slightly stronger colour. Cut it at 8.5, leave you a good piece for something else, and at 14 as well. Go. So that's going to go with my other layers. That can go back with the rest of my DSP to use for another project. And then using that card, so now we're going to score our card base. It's very simple scoring, so you're going to score at 9, at 18, at 19, and that's it. So pop my scoreboard away, or indeed my trimmer, and now what you want to do is give those a good burnish. So just come in, go and fold up. Oh, and I've missed a score mark, and I was thinking it wasn't quite right. I'll do that in a moment. I'll finish burnishing, because that last one should have been at 28 centimetres. So let me just grab that out. And you will find that that just leaves you a narrow section, not quite 1 centimetre. And that's to make it easy for your card to close and reduce the bulk. So that last little one. Like so. So this is now going to form our base. And what we want to do is we want to die cut this panel. So you've got single, double score lines here. And then this panel is the one that you're going to die cut, but you want to die cut it on the other side. So just pop that over, and again we're going to do the same as we did with our other one, which is to have a look and actually just eyeball that so that it's an even border, like so. And then pop that through your die cutting machine. So that comes out. And there we have our panel. So now that we've created that, we want to add some adhesive around the outer edge of this. Add some adhesive. And this is the panel that's going to go there. And you can see that's going to cover that beautifully. So all you're going to do is add adhesive on top of that that's already there. I'm using some Tombow, but I'm just going around the very outer edge. As I said, I don't want my inside sticking to my background. So that just goes in like so. Now when you turn it over, give it a good press down, and if you've got any adhesive showing, just come in with your embossing buddy and give that a really good dab all the way over. And then any glue that you've got, obviously that will take the adhesive off it. I've actually got a bit of glue there, so I'm just going to use my embossing buddy just to deal with that at the moment. Obviously got a bit of glue on my sheet. So there we go, it's starting to come together. So keeping it folded, you can now see where your DSP needs to go. And you could, I suppose. No, I'm going to keep it with the colour choice I had originally. So just add some adhesive to the back of your panel of DSP, and that's going to go in the centre there. Now this edge bit is the narrowest, so if you've got narrow tape, this is where I'd recommend using some red tape, or use your silicone matte and your Seal Plus. I'm just waiting for my Seal Plus refill to arrive. And what you would do is put that on the silicone mat, run your Seal Plus down there, and then fold it back on itself. So if I show you just a little bit with the Stampin' Seal, so you'd roll it down the edge, and then where it is, you just fold that back on itself. That's just another way of getting that narrow bit. I mean, you could make the card slightly longer to give yourself a bigger gap if you wanted. So you could just take it up so that it's sort of 29, probably 20. In fact, 29 would be fine. It's just so that it's narrower than this piece here. So here you can see we're starting to come together. Before we finally finish that glue, I'm just going to burnish that down well. And I'm going to do my very front panel. And the reason I'm doing that now is because it's much easier to get it nice and flat once you've got your, while your card is still deconstructed, so to speak. So just add this on here. So that's my layer for the front. I do love this colour. Now, if you're being frugal, you could gut this as well, or die cut the centre. That piece is 8.5 by 14 centimetres. This piece of basic white was 8 by 13.5. So just add that onto the front there. Then we can add our flowers and leaves. So what I did was I actually trimmed my leaves. So I just used part of the branch. So just trim those down. I mean, you can use a whole one if you want to, obviously. But it was just it was more the size of it. I wanted to I just wanted a branch that didn't quite have that sprig coming off to the side of it. So that's going to go on the bottom there, and I'm just going to glue that inner piece, that sort of left hand side, because I want to keep that element free, and I might even pop a dimensional on it just to give it a bit of shape. For my main flower, just shape that slightly, grab a dimensional and pop it in the centre there, and that can go in the bottom corner. Then my sweet sorbet one, again just a dimensional in the middle, and tuck that under the edge of that flower. And then my stamped off sort of rose type flower, and pop that there, and then just pop a bit of glue on the end, or you could use a glue dot if you wanted to. Wet glue just allows it to slide a little bit, and just pop that in there as well. What I haven't done though is stamp my sentiment. Oh, knew there's something. So always a challenge. There's always something, isn't there? I know. Chaotic crafting. So this is going to be a little bit more tricky, because what I would have said is to line it up on your grid sheet. But hey, there we go. So what I'm going to do is hopefully get this right. So I'm lining my card up on my grid sheet. I've got my sentiment on my block. And I'm just going to pop that in there. There we go. Job's a good one. Another reason for doing all of this before you actually construct your card. Now, looking at that, it's looking a little bit bare in that bottom corner, so I'm just going to take another bit of leaf that I happen to have here and pop that in that corner as well. And because we've popped the dimensional in the middle of the flower, that means that we know we've got a little bit of space to lift up. Just pop that under there as well. And obviously you could simplify this by just stamping and not doing the die cutting. And then we've got our inner piece, which I'll put in a minute. So let's take just to nibble the corners off this, just in case I haven't quite got them straight. Right, and so now what we want to do is we're going to fold that card down with our panel out, fold the front over, and that's why I said if you stamp this border here, you can see you've got a really pretty edge. We can add a flower to that corner if we want to. I'm going to leave it for the moment, and then when you open it, that diorama pops up to give that 3D effect. So now all we need to do is add our sentiment panel into the left hand side there as well. Grab a bit of Tombow, and I haven't layered this up with a contrast on the inside because you want to keep that bulk to a minimum. Put it on the right way is a good idea. And there you go. And there we have our fun diorama cards. using the lovely two-tone floral. And if you want to purchase any of these, just pop along to Stampin' Up, and when you get to checkout, select me as your demonstrator. If you just search for Heidi Smith and the Find a Demonstrator, that will enable you to purchase from me. So thanks for watching. Come back and see me again soon, and I hope you have fun making these lovely lacy panel diorama cards. Thanks for watching. Bye.